Boy, a lot of issues in there for us to tackle. Let's start with generics. I mean, this year the generic market is supposed to go to $84 billion. It's expected to hit $130 billion in the next 5 years. David, let me ask you about that at Medco. One of the biggest issues with generics is building trust.
Well, you know, often mistrust is tied to lack of education on a certain subject. So I would say in regard to generics specifically, individuals did not understand that generics are an identical chemical copy of the brand name drug. And I can tell you that when I came to Medco in 2003, about 42% of all prescriptions we dispensed were generic. Today, about 70% of all the drugs we dispense are generic. It's because physicians are more willing to write that prescription, patients are more willing to write that prescription, and they understand better today than they did 5 years ago.
Are generics the future as far as you're concerned?
You can't be in the medicines business and not be part of the generic drug industry. That is the place that is going to provide access to the hundreds of millions of people in the globe that don't have access to medicines. We are in that business. We're significantly in that business, and we're getting into it even more. Tomorrow's generic drugs are today's innovations. All these generic drugs that he's selling were once invented by pharmaceutical companies. So those were really good drugs when they were invented. They're really good drugs today. But if we want to have good drugs tomorrow, we have to have both.
Jeff, the key to that is you have to have a patent system, but we have to have quality generics too. If you want to destroy trust, just have no regulations.
Let me pick up this point about the IP issue, if I may, and the degree to which there's this dance between the drug companies and those in China and India who are saying, look, actually, we may actually just copy the drugs and give you no royalties at all.
Not true.
Yes, and therefore the drug companies having to say, all right, well, we'll give them to you for free or at a very low cost.
Not true anymore, Simon. That's not fair to China and India. In fact, India, you know, once upon a time there were some challenges in that market, but India has adopted a patent law. They're working very hard to bring their patent law up to speed. In fact, relative to the length of time that country has been around versus the United States, they've made a great deal of progress, and the same is true of China.
Let me bring in Bill Castell. Join us from London from the Wellcome Trust, if you would, because I know that you see this as an asymmetry in globalization. Explain that to us, if you would.
If the growth markets truly don't respect patents, and I'm not sure I'm totally with Jeffrey on the fact that they're getting right, my discussions in India and China are always on the point. You've got to have an established intellectual property base if we're to make the knowledge-based society deliver the technologies.
I just have to comment on this, if I may. We don't disagree. They have to do it. I completely agree with that. The only point I'm making is I think as they recognize the importance of their own intellectual property, I think they're getting better and they're making progress. Are they where they should be? No. Do we need to continue to work with them on that? Absolutely. And the answer to your question is, Simon, they have to do it. The countries have to do it themselves.
Yeah. David, let me ask you about competition as a leader. I mean, the Walmart question. You know, when Walmart comes onto someone's turf, as they have with yours, you have said a lot of people, quote, shake in their boots. How do you get your own employees to not do that? We talked about this before the show, and you chuckled the way that you are now.
Okay, so you set a clear vision. We have a strategic plan, and we're very comfortable competing with Walmart, with CVS Caremark, with Express Scripts, with all of our competitors. I mean, that's what makes the private sector good. There is real competition. People have choices. When a Walmart says we're coming in, remember, Walmart's a retailer focused on primarily selling things in their store. They do not have a service model. The individual patient walking into the store is not making these benefit purchasing decisions. It is a client who's a payer for many employees, and it's a totally different conversation with them, and they have a completely different set of needs. So if we structure our business and our innovations on the needs of that client, we will win in the market.
Bill, let me take you back to the most recent crisis that we've had here in the U.S., and not swine flu, but the financial crisis. You have said that was caused in large part by a failure of leadership. What do you mean by that? What was that failure?
I think people are way too focused on the short term. But I think we have to, as leaders, say this is the right thing to do in the long term.
How do you do that in a public company? I mean, how do you get, you're beholden to your shareholders, and you may want to focus on the long term, and maybe the CEOs at Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan too, but you
He's on the board of Goldman Sachs.
Let's not forget that. I think you have to say to your shareholders, we are going to create long-term value in this company. You're not here for a quick hit. We're creating long-term value through our strengths. Our strengths are innovation, creativity, and we'll get a great great return for that. And yes, we'll do the generics. We'll do OTC with products.
I think this is one of the most important characteristics of leaders today in public companies, and Bill has articulated this very well in many venues. I think it's very challenging to be a leader of a public company today for a lot of reasons, but this may be the most important. Our employees are motivated by working at our companies not by profits, not by the short term, not by quarterly earnings. They believe in the missions of our companies.
You know, the way we work in this industry, if we don't do well by patients, and if we don't take care of patients, the profits are not there. If the profits are not there, there's no money to reinvest in R&D. If there's no money to reinvest in R&D, you don't have innovation, and you don't have this wonderful whole cycle that really drives what we do every day.
As a CEO, you have to find the reason that you're doing what you're doing.
It has to do with what's the purpose. Are you trying to restore people to full life and health? That's what we did at Medtronic. What are your basic values? Is it quality? Is it integrity? Is it truthfulness? The great value creators of the world are people that created for the long term. You don't create real value overnight.
It goes clearly beyond healthcare. I mean, we're in healthcare, we're in lifestyle, we're in lighting. The overarching principle is our people come to work in the morning to improve quality of life of people.
Right.
That's what they're there for. That's what motivates them. That's what gets them going.
Bill, first, let me ask you about the employees and increasingly the view that the companies should be intervening in the way in which they live their lives, the choices, the health choices that they make, and how perhaps you should reward that through the payroll system.
Well, we've touched upon it. 70% of all healthcare costs today are behaviorally reflected in some shape or form. Obesity is the big driver today. In the past, it was smoking. There, the government came in and basically said, we're just going to tax you. And with that, smoking plummeted in the U.S. Globally, it hasn't, and other people haven't used that yet. But you show that government can actually come in. In the same way, and it's being debated, how much should a company come in and either with a carrot, here's some airline miles if you participate in this wellness program, and that has been successful for many companies, or here's a little bit of a stick. If you don't cut down on what you're eating or lose X number of pounds, your deductible goes up. And there's a lot of debate right now, and nobody has the answer yet.
Is that right? Is that fair?
Well, of course, it's up to the CEO. It's the culture you want to establish.
Is that fair?
Yes. Equally effective, what the government did around smoking is they made people feel guilty for doing it. They actually created a cultural...
Truth squads.
Cultural stigma about it. And frankly, other countries...
Is that good? Do I want to feel bad about chocolate? Really?
In a Medtronic cafeteria,
the government's going to tell me...
In a Medtronic cafeteria, you can't get high-fat food.
But I should feel bad about eating a cheeseburger.
There's a major fitness facility in every Medtronic facility because we want people to take their noon hours to go out and work and eat yogurt. And yes, people get these incentives to take care of their health if their body mass is in line.
I think the problem is...
We don't tell people what to eat or what to drink, but we, for example, market a little device that helps you manage and monitor your activity level. We give it to all our employees. It's up to them to use it, to connect with the website, to get their coach.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Next, they're among the greatest minds in their field, but can they solve the leadership challenge that Susie Welch has for them?